Good evening. We'll get started. Welcome to the College of Education Winter 2026 Education Issues Forum. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is our 14th year of the forums, which is exciting, and we've covered a really impressive range of current and critical topics. We have another incredible panel for you tonight, and the topic could not be more crucial as we discuss school communities organized, supporting immigrant students and families. We will introduce our panelists in a little bit, but thank you very much to Fanny Diego Alvarez, Laura Dignani, and Maria Havner for joining us and sharing your wisdom this evening. One of the most important roles that we play as educators is education toward engaged democracy. Franklin Delano Roosevelt reminds us that democracy cannot succeed unless those who express their choice are prepared to choose wisely. The real safeguard of democracy is, therefore, education. Nelson Mandela adds, an educated, enlightened, and informed population is one of the surest ways of promoting the health of a democracy. This means it's our responsibility to promote student learning toward becoming active, engaged, critical, and informed citizens. We must educate toward active democracy rather than passive democracy, and we must impart the responsibility to understand, gain knowledge, and be responsible toward the betterment of our local communities, our world, and our future, and our topic tonight could not be more important. I want to take a quick minute to thank Diane Horowitz and Maya Bushitz, without whose dedication, hard work, and incredible organizational skills, we would not be here. Diane has been a tireless sponsor and champion to these forums for many years, and we greatly appreciate her service. I will now introduce and then hand things over to the wonderful Dr. Sonia Soltero, who serves as our moderator today. She's a nationally recognized scholar and teacher in bilingual education and equity in education. She's our professor of bilingual education in the Department of Leadership, Language, and Curriculum here in the college. She was a former bilingual education teacher, kindergarten, I might add, and coordinator in Chicago Public Schools, as well as in the Tucson Unified School District serving the Pascua Yaqui tribe. Dr. Soltero's scholarly work focuses on bilingual and dual language education, biliteracy, and Latino education. Her publications are published in English, Spanish, and French and include numerous books, chapters, articles, and research briefs, and 3 books. Dr. Soltero is co-founder and current chair of the English Learners Advocacy Council in Higher Ed. She's the board member on Advance Illinois and a member of the National Committee on Effective Literacy. She's been appointed to numerous state, national, and international commissions and advisory councils, and has collaborated with schools and districts, as well as governmental and education agencies across the United States and internationally. So I hand it over to her.
Thank you so much, Dean Mueller, for the introduction and for being here with us. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. We are so thrilled to have over 300 participants registered for our event today, including the Paul community, faculty and students, and also from other universities, pre-K-12 educators and educational leaders, community and state organizations, and others. So thank you for being here and taking the time. A real testament to the widespread interest in and continued concerns about immigration enforcement threats affecting our communities and educational institutions across the country. I want to take a moment, as Dean Mueller did, to point out that we are marking the 15th anniversary of the Paul Quarterly Forums that Dr. Diane Horowitz organizes, and also thank her and Maya for doing all the heavy lifting behind the scenes. So thank you so much. These forums have tackled a huge variety of important educational issues critical to understanding our roles as educators and educational leaders. A big thank you again to Diane and Maya. And just to note that in the chat we're going to be posting some resources, including articles on the impact of immigration enforcement on schools, and a short PBS documentary on Minneapolis schools and what's happening, continues to happen, and it's happened there. Today's forum will begin with some remarks from me to provide the context for the discussion ahead, followed by a Q&A with our amazing 3 panelists, Fanny Diego Alvarez, Maria Havner, and Laura Dignani. And let me introduce them. Maria Havner is a first grade teacher at Funston Elementary in Logan Square. She's a veteran educator of 16 years and has worked in a variety of school districts, including the Mississippi Delta, Brooklyn, and now Chicago. She has a bachelor's of arts in political science and a master's in elementary education. Her work in education is rooted in community advocacy and social justice. Maria, or Maria, I may call her Maria throughout the session today, the forum, currently serves as a member of the Chicago Teachers Union House of Delegates. She is responsible for organizing members from her school to advocate for our students, schools, and communities. This year, she began organizing sidewalk solidarity actions, community partnerships, and resources for immigrant rights. So Maria, thank you for being here. Our next panelist, Laura Dignani, is originally from Argentina, earned her degree in education, English language and literature from the Universidad Nacional de Córdoba in Argentina. Upon her arrival to the US, she quickly understood the key role of the Latine community as the largest and fast-growing ethnic group and decided to pursue a master's degree in Latin American Latino Studies from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Her professional journey started as a Spanish language instructor at Luther College in Decorah, Iowa. And then she moved to Chicago in 2009 and has since fulfilled her passion for teaching Spanish for heritage speakers, mentoring first-generation Latina college students, and advocating for immigrant rights. Laura started teaching at CPS in 2009, and since then she has taught in the south and southwest sides of the city. For the last 11 years, she has been an advisor of spaces for undocumented students and allies and is currently a member of the Solorio Academy Sanctuary team. And our last panelist, Fanny Diego Alvarez, is a cross-sector leader whose work focuses on the intersection of civic engagement, education, social work, and community organizing for over 18 years. Throughout her professional career, she has maintained a steadfast commitment to social justice. She has served in 2 roles at Chicago Public Schools and currently leads the Office of Family and Community Engagement, FACE, or FACE. In this role, she advances initiatives such as that position parents as full partners in education and engages them in democratic spaces such as the local school councils and parent advisory councils of Chicago Public Schools. Previously, Fanny worked at the Grand Victoria Foundation, leading its education and racial justice grant-making efforts across Illinois and supporting community groups driven by parent educators and student voices. From 2004 to 2015, or 17, Fanny served in various leadership roles at Enlace Chicago, and during her tenure, Enlace secured over $1 million in annual funding for local schools, designing, testing, and launching innovative programming in social emotional learning, post-secondary readiness, and resistance-led strategies. She also established the Little Village Education Collaborative, a collective impact strategy designed to strengthen the local education ecosystem and advance racial equity. In her volunteer capacity, Fanny, she has extra time, has served on a local school council and several nonprofit boards, including Chicago United for Equity. Thank you so much to Fanny, Laura, and Maria for joining us and serving us as our panelists for this important conversation. So, last spring, we began this conversation with a forum looking at the then harsh immigration policies impacting our students and schools. This afternoon, we will continue that conversation as we see the catastrophic results in our area and across the country as immigration enforcement expands their brutal and often unlawful tactics over the past year. We are definitely in a moment of unprecedented emergency that demands our immediate and sustained action. So it is important to first understand the demographics of the United States and the scale of impact of these policies. Per the current population survey in 2025, approximately 53 million or 16% of the total US population were immigrants. The Pew Research Center reported in June 2025 This number declined to 52 million, not surprisingly, because of the anti-immigration sentiment that we're experiencing in the past year. 3/4 of all immigrants in the US are legally here. That's really important, so I'll say it again. 3/4 of all immigrants in the United States are legally here, and almost half are naturalized citizens. Latinos are the largest immigrant group, followed by immigrants from Asia. And while all immigrants and immigrant-adjacent groups are affected, it is evident that the most targeted and racially profiled population are Latinos. In Illinois, Latinos make up nearly 20% of the state's total population, accounting for approximately 2.34 million Latinos, while Asians make up around 6% or 750,000. The Chicago Latino population is about 800,000, nearly 30% of the city's total population, while the Asian population is around almost 200,000, accounting for about 7% of Chicago's residents. So it's undeniable that immigrant communities are and have always been the fabric of the United States and contribute in critical ways to the economy and to society. Since last spring, we witnessed a series of deeply disturbing actions under the government Operation Midway Blitz, a militarized style operation carried out in a South Shore apartment building that we all witnessed on television and many witnessed in the flesh. And that was only the beginning. We have seen increased detentions and deportations. We have seen a father killed on his way to work. We have seen a young woman shot and then charged with obstructing lawful operations, only for those charges to then be dismissed later. We have seen ICE enter a daycare center to pull out a preschool teacher, traumatizing the staff and the children. Tear gas deployed near schools, neighborhoods shaken, businesses suffering, families afraid to leave their homes. We have seen the detention of unaccompanied minors on their way to school, or even small children. And now widely reported case of little Liam in Minneapolis is only one of the many heartbreaking and abhorrent examples. Clearly, offering praise and comfort at the Broadway Detention Center have been harassed, and clergy that have offered prayers and comfort at the Broadway Detention Center have been harassed and arrested. And the 2 peaceful protesters killed in Minneapolis, the most basic common sense accountability measures have gone out the window, like requiring officers to identify themselves, being unmasked, ensuring consequences for wrongful detention and shootings. The administration's harsh immigration policies have looming threats of being detained and deported without due process. These have profound effects on students, families, communities, the education world, teachers and school principals and counselors, all of which create serious barriers to those children's education and their social-emotional well-being. So this afternoon's forum focuses on what all this means for students and schools and their educators in the Chicago area and the Chicago metro area. And we know full well these issues extend far beyond our city. The trauma in Minneapolis, the lockdowns, the fear, the constant disruption to children's daily lives is a purview and preview of what unchecked enforcement brings. In the chat, we have shared a PBS report that illustrates this impact in painful detail. And so I ask, how can we expect children to learn, to concentrate, to feel safe when recess is canceled because of nearby enforcement activities? When schools go into lockdown, when children spend the day wondering whether their parents will be there at pickup or even at home when they arrive after school. The Sun-Times article we circulated gives several examples that educators across the city recognize all too well. We hear from our own DePaul students and alum and from educators across many schools that teachers and school leaders themselves feel uncertain, unsure how to respond, unsure what the rules allow, and sometimes reticent about getting involved. We totally understand these fears and understand the weight of that uncertainty. So this afternoon, we will hear from 2 deeply dedicated and courageous teachers who have experienced these impacts directly in their classrooms And we will also hear from the Chief of the Family and Community Engagement at Chicago Public Schools, who will offer a broader picture of how the district is responding. Our focus this afternoon is on action, on what we can do, on how to build agency, to push back against reprehensible federal actions, to support our students and families, and to offer a path of healing the trauma inflicted on our communities. With these realities in mind, let's move to our panelists. So we will have 2 rounds of questions. The first will be related to what has happened in the past months regarding the impact of immigration enforcement, what students, teachers, and members of the community have experienced. And so we will begin with our 2 teacher panelists. So Maria or Maria, I've asked her which one, and she said whatever I want. So I'll go with Maria. Maria, welcome, and thank you again for being with us. So tell us about Funston Elementary School. What are the demographics of the student body and the community?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Sonia. Yes, I'm a first grade teacher at Funston Elementary School, and I'm the union delegate as well for my school. My school is made up of mostly students with Latino heritage, and then a small percentage of students are also Black, Asian. 97% of our students receive free or reduced price lunches. I'm so sorry, my heat is turning on. And it's a community school. It's students from around the area. We have a cluster program at our school for special education students. And we also have a bilingual program. So we have dual language classes. So we do get some students from a little bit of a distance for our cluster program or dual language, but generally it is a neighborhood school and we have our students mostly walking or taking the bus to our school every day.
So, Maria, tell us and share what has happened over the past 6 or more months and how are students and families reacting to the increased immigration enforcement, specifically what happened this past fall about how ICE and Border Patrol impacted our school community.
Absolutely. So it was about September, I think, that we were hearing word that there was going to be an increase in immigration enforcement in the area. Because of that, I had decided to go to rapid responder training to find out more information about what to expect, and just to become more educated on knowing my rights. At the same time, the union was encouraging everyone to increase supportive actions in their schools called sidewalk solidarities, which began as us standing on the corner with posters that were like, "We love our neighbors, immigrants are welcome here," and passing out Know Your Rights cards. And then that generated a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of support. And then early October, it was a Friday, October 3rd, there was a lot of immigration action in our neighborhood in the area around a lot of the schools. So the Thursday night before, there was a little bit of chatter on social media, and OCAD had released some information that it was rumored that there was going to be sort of a Freaky Friday action where there was going to be some immigration enforcement around unaccompanied minors on their way to school. And so there was a lot of nervous feelings and fear around that. It wasn't confirmed, but people were feeling sort of on edge. And that morning we were having a sidewalk solidarity, and part of it was just handing out whistles to the community, to teachers, to other parents, other community members, neighbors. And then the day started, and it was sort of feeling like a normal day, besides the fact that everyone was kind of on edge in general. And it was a really nice day in October. My windows were open, and I was teaching kids, and all of a sudden there was a lot of noise outside the school. There was a lot of horns. It sounded like siren sounds, and my phone was going off a lot. Like it was pinging just a ton. And so I checked it, and one of the teachers from our school had been outside for lunch, and she was walking to the grocery store, and there was there were federal agents in the street in their SUV, And there were a lot of community members around that also had their own whistles and noisemakers, and they were trying to kind of form a crowd and stay loud is the big motto for like helping neighbors know that what's happening in the neighborhood and trying to keep each other safe. And as the crowd started to get a little bit bigger and the noise was getting a little bit louder, that's when the agents rolled down their window and started throwing tear gas canisters. And I think they threw 2 or 3. I know it was more than one, so about 2 or 3. And then quickly after that, they rolled up their window and they were able to get out of the neighborhood. But then there were still a lot of our community members in the neighborhood that were affected by that. And then the other thing was there was a lot of communication between CTU members in different schools and also community members in the area. And we were starting to piece together that it wasn't just our school, that it was North Grand and it was Mozart and it was Darwin and it was all these schools in these neighborhoods that are predominantly Hispanic and Latino. And then that's when everybody started to tap into, because like once you do sort of a rapid response training, that's when you're able to plug in with your other neighbors and community members. And so we had started sort of a small network where we were able to communicate with each other, like your neighbors nearby. And so word was spreading about what was happening around the schools. And then a lot of community members stepped up and they started making infographics to share on social media to say, hey, these are the schools that need support at dismissal time. So I wasn't exactly sure what to expect because I was in the school building all day and I was trying to be sort of a liaison for people to communicate between neighbors, between school officials, stuff like that. And by the end of the day, when we did dismissal, we walked out and there were so many neighbors lined up all around the school. Then they sort of figured out that there was a staggered dismissals throughout like the schools that they were supporting. So once they were done supporting us, they were like off to the next school. And that's sort of how it started. It was sort of organic and kind of just evolved on its own.
Very traumatizing.
Yeah, it was. And for a while after that, I talked with the teacher that was outside actually when she saw the agents, and she immediately started running and blowing her whistle. So she wasn't affected by the tear gas, but she was out there when all that commotion was happening. So she and I were both talking about like how afterwards, just anytime there were times when we were like hearing horns and we're like, did that really just happen? Are we hearing horns again? Is this happening again? And then just times when you're driving around and you hear someone honk and you kind of like get nervous again. So it was really traumatic. And the kids, I would say the younger kids didn't fully understand what was happening during the day because the adults were really trying to like keep ourselves collected. I think they understood something serious was happening, but it wasn't really impacting their day, the younger ones.
Quite a shock, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we will come back to further details that you can share with us, and we'll go to Fanny. Sorry, not Fanny. We'll go to Laura, and then we'll come back to this topic, and you can provide. You delved a little bit into the next question for you, Maria. We'll come back to you, but stay if you like to stay. But Laura. Thank you for coming as well and being with us tonight. So please tell us a little bit about Solario High School, student body demographics, and the population from the Solario community.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. So Solorio is also a neighborhood school, predominantly also Latina community. We are located in the southwest side of Chicago, 5 minutes away from Midway Airport, which the operation took the name from. So we were at the epicenter of a lot of immigration enforcement agents activity. Our school serves around 1,200 students, around 95% also qualify for free lunches. A third of our school population is EL, is English learner. Most of the students are Mexican heritage, but we also are recently noticing a lot more Colombian, Venezuelans, students from Ecuador, even a couple from Argentina, my country, Honduras. It's a small population of Black and Asian, probably just 1%. So Gage Park is a very vibrant community, mostly Mexican. 90% of the population in Gage Park is Mexican. So of course, that what used to be a source of celebration and culture pride now makes you a target. Something that really I notice is, around September, the first 2 weeks of September, everyone that teaches or lives in the Latino neighborhoods know that the flags start coming out because September 16th is Mexican Independence Day. So you start seeing everyone showing their pride with their flags, and it's flooded with flags and culture pride. And September, I don't think I remember seeing a single car showing their Mexican flags because no one wanted to be identified. But unfortunately, like I said, when 90% of the population in the neighborhood is Latino,
Right.
we became a target because of the population that we serve and the community that we serve. It's a high school, so our students mostly also walk to school, and we didn't see necessarily an impact in the attendance because they walk and they're teenagers, so they don't necessarily rely so much on the parents taking them. So because of the population we serve, we are a recently new school. We opened in 2010. So in the first cohort of students graduates, our valedictorian didn't have any post-secondary plans, and it was because she was undocumented. And the school, in a way, failed to support the student. We didn't have at that time the spaces or the support system. So our administrator at that time quickly understood that that had to be a priority. And since then, we have a Dream Team, and I am a proud sponsor of Dream Team. So it's a space to support, to advocate, to inform, to make sure that everyone has a plan after their post-secondary. When they leave high school, they all have a plan regardless of their immigration status.
Thank you. We have about 2 more minutes. Can you just speak? You already sort of gave us some examples. Can you speak to how the families are reacting to the increased
Sure.
immigration enforcement?
So unfortunately, since last year, we had 7 families that self-deported. So they decided to leave and go back to their countries of origin. And we had 2 more families this year. So a total of 9 Solorio families have self-deported. We have around 12 families that we know of who have had a parent or a close family member, an uncle or a cousin, who has been arrested. When they were arrested without a warrant. They were picked in the streets in their way to work or walking along. 2 of our parents were street vendors. They were selling tamales a couple of blocks away from the school, and they were picked up as they were trying to make a living to support their families. One Sunday, there was a border patrol agent in full military gear holding a gun at the corner of our school, and he stopped one of our seniors. Fortunately, the senior had taken all the precautions that we have been warning them about, and he had a picture of his passport on the phone, so he was able to be released immediately. I mean, they didn't detain him, but he had to prove that he is a citizen so that the border patrol agent would not, take any further action. Right now, I have a student sitting in one of my classes who just got the news that his father, who's been detained since October, he's going to be deported. And we had a very sad story of one of our alum that we're still in contact with him. He was just honking in Little Village in a very active day where the agents were in a sort of caravan. So he was alerting the community, honking, and he was surrounded by agents. He was pulled from his car. He was taken to without any warrant. He was taken to an FBI building. He was beaten. He was kept the whole day, and he was finally released in the evening. So those are some of the stories for you to have an idea of how impacted that neighborhood, our community has been.
And civil rights violations left and right, human rights violations left and right, no due process. It's
No.
devastating and goes outside of the law.
Yeah,
So thank
we
you.
also had to do a soft, I forgot to say that, something very important. We have a system, we have protocols, so we alert, we get alerted, and we did have to do a soft lockdown one day because the immigration enforcement agents were so close to the building that when we did a soft lockdown, so students were allowed to stay. We warned them, they were allowed to stay in the building if they pleased, and of course, we let the families know that was good.
Great impact, safety, psychological, and
Terrible.
well-being. Yes. So thank you for sharing that. We're now going to go to Fanny. Fanny, who will offer a picture of the impact of immigration enforcement throughout the city as it impacts schools. So Fanny, thank you again for being here. Can you provide an overview of the impact of federal immigration enforcement in CPS, and how have these repressive policies that we've been experiencing affected attendance, student mental health, teacher morale, concerns, parent involvement, schools, etc.?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sonia. Well, first, I want to thank Laura and Maria for sharing. I think it's really important for us to ground in the experiences of our educators on the ground. Chicago Public Schools, we are our teachers, our school leaders, our students, our families. Like sometimes I tell people like we're like a mini city, right? Because it's like hundreds and thousands of people that we're interacting with each other and within sort of like the parameters of school buildings every day, 5 days out of the week. So as you heard from Maria and Laura, the impact varies and is layered, and it is more than concentrated on just an action at the local street. We are very fortunate that our school buildings have maintained safety, and we hear from our students that they feel safe in the school building. But we also acknowledge that anything that happens in community and across the city then is brought back into the school and vice versa, right? And so like our schools are an extension of community, and the community is an extension of schools. So you've heard from Maria and Laura, so you can imagine those experiences. And we're a city that has about 600 schools, including charter schools, right? Apologies, my voice trails off because I've had a cold. So we see stories like that across the city. Now, I do want to say that they've mentioned that there are some spaces in our city that have a higher concentration of Latina families and Latina students. I will, however, say that we have a lot of students that commute too, right? And also, we have students that in the last several years, when they were arriving, they settled in areas of the city that traditionally didn't have a non-English speaking population, right? And so we do see some schools that now have English learners, bilingual learners, and that's newer, right? And so
What areas of the city?
so if we take a look at, for example, South Shore,
Mm.
right? Like that's an area where we saw right where we saw the helicopters overnight across the street from a school, right? So as a school district, we've been paying attention to obviously areas where we know there is a heavy concentration of Latinx students and families, but we're really paying attention to the entire city. And you asked about attendance. I think overall, we definitely haven't seen a significant persistent drop, but we know and we are aware that there are some student groups that have seen dips in discrete points, like during the fall. And Freaky Friday, as Maria mentioned, is a very particular day, right? And so that would be an example of when there was a dip. Fortunately, it's bounced back. However, overall, we as a school district have been trying to increase our attendance post-COVID, right? And so like we forget also that we as a school district have been in recovery mode from COVID as well, right? But overall, we haven't seen a significant drop. There's been several articles that have come out where there is a deeper analysis into the attendance. I believe that Diane mentioned that she was going to drop in some articles. When it comes to mental health support, we know this is taking a toll on students. We know it because we've heard from students themselves. I've been fortunate enough to sit on several student-led conversations, some in the Southwest side, some from across the city. And we've heard directly from them, and our senior leaders have heard directly from them. Our Board of Education members have heard directly from them. Even and it includes our student voice committees and MICFA Challenge that does a great job at like bringing together students, as well as our student honorary student board member. And so we've heard that we've expanded our information about our mental health supports. We also continue to meet with our behavioral health teams at the school levels. And we have been making connections at the school level. So when we find out that a family has been impacted, we reach out to schools, or schools reach out to us, depending on how we find out and who provides that info. And we do a follow-up to also inquire whether the family is connected to additional resources beyond the school. And so that includes mental health, but it also includes some basic supports like food pantry support. Sometimes if a local organization also has a particular fund for rental assistance or legal support, we are trying to ensure that the schools that may not have those direct connections have them. And we know that other schools already have them, right? And so Solorio is a great example. Funston's a great example of school communities that are activated and have very activated community-based partnerships and volunteers that add another layer of support that, as a school, they're benefiting from, and that as a school district we depend on because we are a very large city. You also asked about parent involvement, and I would say that it has fluctuated, right? We know that in the fall, it really, we were ensuring that where we could, we were offering hybrid options or virtual options, right? So that our families knew that there were options. And we would hear from families that were immigrant families and families that were not immigrant families, that they didn't feel safe, right? Being out in the street. They felt safe once they were in the school, right? But like out in the street, they were feeling the fear. So we did our best to reschedule or cancel or do hybrid programming or virtual programming. And we've been slowly recovering. Activity we know in the city has decreased. It's not gone, but it has decreased. And so right now we're slowly recovering, but we're paying attention to it and we're listening to our parents about how they want to connect with schools. And I just want to also mention that, with report card pickup coming up, nowadays we as a school district also make a remote option available for parents. And so there are more options now than ever before. But we also know that families love to be involved in schools, right? Like I know parents that the moment that they started to see it be a little bit less noisy out there, they were at the schools because that is a space where they do want to be involved and they do want to, learn what's happening in not just in the school building, but in the school district, and also participate in workshops and classes.
So you bring up a really important point about parents do enjoy having that connection in the school, but they're too scared to come. And so, organizing like they have in Minneapolis and other places. So I don't know what they're called, but escort services of types of
Yeah,
community members escorting parents and family
absolutely.
members to and from. And then
Absolutely.
I'm glad that you mentioned the population, the community, the people that are legally here, that are U.S. citizens, also afraid because we know that they're also, all of us can be picked up at any time. And so we need to keep that in mind that the
I
targeting is spreading.
I want to focus on that because I think that that is something that young people really understand and that sometimes I think adults forget. But in the conversations that we've had with young people, we've had young people that are not Latino, that are not immigrant, that tell us, I'm scared too, or I'm scared for my friend, or and so there's a solidarity that has been built and we see it. We've seen it for months and weeks. And in the last several weeks, we've seen a lot of student-led walkouts. And we at CPS are really encouraging young people to use their voice, right? And we obviously have guidance and protocols about how to do walkouts and how to stay safe. And that is something that we're really proud of, right? We're very proud of the young people using their voice and, you know, exercising their right, and then also showing solidarity for each other and being vocal about what makes them feel safe inside and outside of school.
That's really amazing, and it's a lessons learned, hard lessons for all of us and for young people because this is all very traumatic. So can you just share the last question? We have about around 4 minutes. Other school communities in the Chicago area throughout Illinois regarding the impact of immigration enforcement and how what's happening in Chicago may apply in small or large districts across the state of Illinois and the Chicago metro area.
Yeah, so we are a large school district. We're the fourth largest in the country. Used to be the third largest. Miami-Dade took our third spot, so some of us feel a certain way about that. But we are in regular communication with other school districts, and so when other school districts reach out to us, we are more than happy to share what we're doing. Sometimes we're in conversations with school districts about a particular topic. Right. And sometimes it is very much about like, hey, this is what we're seeing, around immigration enforcement and how it's impacting our schools or our students or our families. And so we will have conversations. But overall, I think I know from based on conversations with our community partners and with the Illinois Coalition on Immigrant and Refugee Rights, so much of the activity has been concentrating on Chicago and Chicagoland, right? And so the surrounding suburbs are impacted. And we've also had conversations with other large school districts outside of the state, right? So we're in communication with New York and LA and other school districts so that we are sharing with each other, what we're experiencing, and then also what are some of the innovations and solutions that we're finding to address the challenges.
That's really excellent because we're all in the same boat. I know each local is locality is a little different, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we are stronger together. Just one quick question about your thoughts on your understanding of teacher morale and teacher fears, and how are you seeing that, and how is it manifesting, and how is CPS supporting teachers? And school
Yeah,
principals too. They have a lot on their plate.
yeah, absolutely. So we have been having a regular cadence of communication and meetings with all of our labor partners, and that includes the Chicago Teachers Union, the CPAA, which is the Principals Association, which is the principal union, as well as SEIU, who is representing our custodians and other staff at the school level, right? And we've been doing this since the fall. So we meet on a regular basis and they bring together some of their members too, so that we can talk through some of the challenges and hear from those that are impacted directly, but then also have the union representatives there, right? Because this is their job, right? And they, are advocating for their members. And so we're very cognizant of that. I think overall, when I say that like Chicago, or I mean CPS was impacted, it's all of CPS, right? It's our students, it's our families, it's our teachers, it's our principals,
Absolutely.
and this is uncharted territory, right? Like we haven't been here before, and so we're learning together.
Absolutely, and teachers and principals and staff, many come from mixed status families, so or their neighbors, or it's the communities is greatly impacted. Let's see, we're out of time, but we'll come back to you. And thank you, Fanny, for everything that you do. It's not easy. So Maria, um, we'd like to bring you back and continue the conversation. We have about, let's see, 10 minutes. So our pre-service and in-service students here at the Pole, who are or will become teachers and school leaders, are seeking practical suggestions to engage properly with the challenges on the ground. They're looking for help both for how to individually support children and adolescents who are experiencing chronic anxiety and fear, but also how teachers support staff at a school can organize to support students and the broader community. So all of that to say, what are you and your colleagues doing at the district level and at your school to support students and the community, and how you're organizing?
Yes, thank you. I think there's a lot of different things we're doing all at once. One of them is becoming educated on our own rights and being able to educate others in our community on their rights. Communication with neighbors is also really important. We're getting to know our neighbors, especially the neighbors that are on school watch. We talk to them every day. They know our teachers. We have a strong partnership with Palenque LNSA, so we collaborate a lot with them to communicate with the community and parents and families to find out what our needs and also if there's any urgent information. I have been working with the administration in my school a lot to develop a school safety plan to kind of get teachers a framework of what we'll do in case of A, B, C, or D, meaning like in case there are federal agents in the area versus there is someone at our door with a warrant seeking to detain somebody, or somebody accidentally lets federal agents into the building. And so we're sort of fleshing those out and troubleshooting, like, okay, who will be the person to call this safety number, and who will be the person to notify families, and how will we communicate to teachers. And we're really trying to be intentional about each of those steps and what might come up and what might need to be addressed. And then just starting out getting trained yourself, like training yourself on your rights, on what rapid response is, what that looks like in your community, because that was such a big access point for me to be able to network with other people and build supports and collaborate. Another one is mutual aid organizations in the area. So Logan Square Mutual Aid is a big support to our area. It's part of a broader network of West Side Mutual Aid in Chicago. That provides free groceries or clothes or rental assistance to anyone in need. And so connecting families to that.
And Maria, that's really great to have that coordination and partnership with community agencies and other community groups that can really support so it's a heavy lift for schools. Besides teaching, teaching the students and doing all this other stuff that we have to do to protect students and families. So we understand that you were on a call with teachers from Minnesota about what was happening there. Can you tell us a little bit about what they said and what lessons we can learn from them here in Illinois, and anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, it was really interesting speaking with those teachers. They were letting us know because their experience has been a bit different than what's we experienced in the fall in Chicago. For them, it was a surge of about 3,000 agents in their city, and their city being a little bit smaller, they said it was sort of like having agents on their block every day, and it was every block. So really feeling inundated and a bit under siege in that moment. And it sort of felt like the boundaries were being pushed. I think we've all seen a lot of videos that seem really appalling, and you're like, wow, if it feels like you're watching rights being violated on tape. And so the union was aware that there was going to be this surge, and there was already a conversation about how are we going to organize and what are our red lines and what does that look like. And so I think the conversation was building towards that, like, general economic strike along with other unions in the city. And for them, they were sharing how they had conversations, sort of one-on-one conversations being the most important at the school level, their delegates going around and asking their members what their red line is. And as a union, they sort of came up with 2 red lines, where it was if agents were coming to their schools and if anyone was killed. And so very early on, those things occurred. And as they, like, right after Renee Good was killed, they organized again, got together, started having meetings and discussions about what's the next step. That same day, there were agents that showed up at Roosevelt High School, and there were teachers and students that were pepper sprayed, and so that kind of all happened at once, and it really built momentum for them to take action and coordinate with other unions. And so that's sort of what I learned from them, was really starting to, on the ground, speak to other members, speak to other teachers, talk to them, and find out where their red lines are and how they're feeling about what's about to happen and what we're sort of expecting to happen in Chicago, which is sort of a return of a federal presence.
Thank you for sharing that. I just wanted to ask about principals, school leaders who are reluctant or not on board or afraid themselves or don't know what to do. What is your experience? How do you bring them around?
I think my work has been a lot of bringing ideas to the table, like bringing some solutions to the table, and also asking a lot of questions. So, like, if I sense a bit of hesitation from administration, I kind of poke around and ask a bit about why there is a hesitation there, because I know generally, like, the principals union and CPS and the teachers union are all aligned in this area. So I've noticed a lot of hesitations come up with, like, uncertainties of, like, I don't know if that might be breaking a rule, or if there's a liability there or something like that in our conversations. And so I'm like, okay, well then who do we have to talk to find out more about that? So it's been sort of pushing them to, okay, like, if language is important, then let's run this by CPS communications and make sure they approve it. Or if it might be a legal issue, then let's reach out to the law department now instead of having to do it in a reactive or retroactive way. Let's be proactive about our questions. And then I push for a monthly PPC meetings, which are like professional problem committee meetings, but it's not just problems, it's in general any issues that might be important to discuss with admin from the labor end. And so a lot of our monthly PPC meetings have been around planning for different scenarios and discussing these issues that come up, and questions from teachers that come up that are really great too. Because at my most recent meeting, a teacher was like, how do we explain this to the young ones? How do we explain this to kindergarten and first graders? They're scared, they're aware, but, like, what do we do in this situation? How do we speak to them? So that's something.
And what's the answer to that?
I brought it up with my principal because we kind of, like, in passing in the hallway, had a couple of things to share with each other. And I was sort of with her, I was like, my take is that we're honest in a developmentally appropriate way. We don't share too much. We don't scare students or put them in a panic, but we also don't lie to them. And we use our common sense and we use our empathy, and we lead with questions, because that's what I did the Monday following everything that happened. It was sort of strange. There's this big commotion outside of our school. It's very traumatizing. And then my little 6 and 7-year-olds go home that Friday, and I don't see them again until Monday. And so I encourage teachers that on that very Monday in the morning, don't worry about instruction, talk to your students about what happened. Specifically, ask them, what do you know? How do you feel? And do you have any questions? And those are all just like open-ended questions. And I got a lot from my students. They knew a lot about what had gone on because they went home and talked to their families. Some of them were afraid. There was a lot of conversation around skin color and around who might be most vulnerable. And then there were some students who were still sort of very like innocent and they didn't really know anything going on and they weren't really like checked in. But there were a lot of students who were, and they had a lot of feelings and they're still feeling nervous about it. It comes up from time to time. Like we read a book during Black History Month about civil rights and protesting, and they made a connection between our sidewalk solidarity and the signs we held up. And then they started talking about ICE.
That
Um,
is,
or just immigration enforcement. And so it's still ways for them.
that's learning, right? It's part of learning to connect to current events. And I know I was a kindergarten teacher talking to 5-year-olds about difficult conversations, and how to do that at that age is really delicate, and like you said, but I love what you said. What do you know to young children? Because with older children, you can have maybe better conversations or more in-depth conversations. How do you feel, and what questions do you have? And I think those are just really great, developmentally appropriate things to ask young 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. And we'll come back to you again. So we're going to go to Laura now. Thank you, Maria. Laura, so please tell us about the organizing taking place at Solorio. Sorry, I had a typo here. It's Salario, not Salario. Solorio.
Sure.
What is the dream team and the previous work of the team, and how is the team supporting the undocumented students and their families? And describe your hoodie and tote bag project, and how can people buy these as a show of support?
So Dream Team is a safe and brave space led by undocumented students and allies. And there's 4 adults, teachers, and post-secondary support person who we advise the team. The Dream Team has been in existence for 12 years, so we are a very popular team club. It's a club, actually. We meet every Friday. So all the organizing that Maria just described that happened in our school happened as well since November 2024. Because of Dream Team being already active in the school, we were very proactive. And the Dream Team members were part of that organizing, which was very empowering for the students. They were, doing things shoulder to shoulder with the community and with the teachers. So some of the things that we have done, we design a Know Your Right lesson, and we deliver it to them first. So they gave us feedback, and we deliver the lesson to every single student in the building. They put together the whistle kits with the instructions on how to use the whistle to alert the community. Together with the social studies group of students. And then we went into the community. We did 3 sessions of canvassing. They were trained by community leaders into how to canvass and into how to talk to the media, because we were featured in different media outlets. So all of that was all student-centered, and they grew so much and they felt so empowered. So they are not necessarily taking it as, well, what can we do? No, they're already doing a lot of things. So we went into the community. We calculate more or less 400 families on only one day. We went door to door in all the surrounding areas of the community. Right now, we're working on a winter drive. And one of the main things we do is we fundraise. We have fundraised since the beginning of the club. But historically, our funds will go into the Rigo Padilla Perez Scholarship for Undocumented Students. So at Solorio, if you're undocumented and you want to go to school, money is not going to stop you, because the community fundraise, and we make sure that every senior that wants to attend college goes to college and can afford college. So historically, that has been the purpose of our fundraising. But now, with so many families impacted, and something that we haven't mentioned yet is that on top of the anxiety and the fear and the sadness. And unfortunately, my high school students understand everything. I don't need to explain anything to them. They're on social media, they're seeing the videos, they have experienced it. So they already know the fear is very real. So the fear is making the community stay home, right? So no one is going out to restaurants. People are not in the streets shopping. They're not engaging in financial activities because they are in their homes. And that has impacted the community financially tremendously. If you have recently heard NPR reports, the neighborhood, small businesses, family businesses in La Villita or Pilsen, South Chicago, Gage Park, they have seen a drop in economic activity of up to a 60% since September. And they're still trying to recover because still people are afraid, even though we don't see as much presence. So think about how it becomes a domino effect on the communities. Parents are not working, parents are losing their jobs, businesses are closing. So that is impacting everybody, whether you're undocumented or not. The financial situation of the community is really, really bad right now. So, in your remarks, you talked about how everything that happens outside in their community is going to affect their learning. Well, think about not having enough food, not being able to afford a winter coat. And that's the reality of our community. So that's why we fundraise so much. And right now, the funds that we're fundraising this week, not this week, this school year, are going towards supporting families affected in any way to, help them pay their bills, maybe a month of rent, buying groceries. And we even supported the family in paying their flights to reunite with the parent that had been deported. So on top of all the, Solorio created a sanctuary team as soon as November 2024, and we meet every week. And every week we reassess what is that we need to think about. What is the new problem? What is the new scenario? What support do the students need? And that sanctuary team is made up of security, because you have to think about the support system has to go from the safety of the building, the security of the building, to the mental health support of the families affected, to the financial support, and also the academic support.
Yeah.
We had a student whose mom was detained for a long time. Thankfully, she was released recently. And that student was in and out of the building, missing a lot of school. So how do you support a student that is clearly trying to still get an education, but his life is a mess, right? So Dream Team also is providing a lot of, so from day one, we understood that the families needed to get prepared for the worst case scenario. We did not want to waste time in, oh, do we do it? Don't we not do it? Is it too harsh? Is this cruel? We provided all the information, family preparedness plans from day one. Like, you have to prepare with your family for the worst case scenario. Guardianship forms, so that someone else will be in charge of their kids if the parents were deported. Also, power of attorney. So all those forms were sent to the homes of our students as early as February last year. Right now, we are thinking about hosting a workshop for the community with lawyers, so that the families, get the help they need to, because all these forms are very complicated, convoluted, with convoluted language that maybe our families don't even know, and actually no one really understands sometimes all these legal forms. So we're planning to do that in the next couple of weeks. We are now trying to, because we were so ready for the know your rights part, the protection of the building, now we're trying to go more into the mental health component, because the effect of this in the kids, in their brains, in their learning, is going to be felt for a long time. So we are trying to now make sure that the students understand that what they're going through is not normal, to empower them to seek, mental health help. So we're going to host a series of workshops with BPNC. I want to thank BPNC, Brighton Park Neighborhood Council has been instrumental in our advocacy and our organizing, as much as also Chicago Teachers Union. Definitely, we have been going to all their trainings and sharing resources. So my advice to the teachers and the administrators in this call are get ready for the worst, because if the worst happens and you're not ready, think about the chaos in the building, in the community, for that child's life. So you better be prepared. And all these things that we do at Solorio, we don't do alone. It's a whole network of, from the teachers union to Chicago Public Schools, the Office of Multilingual and Multicultural Office is a great also office to go to for resources. Definitely part of our protocol is to contact Fanny's FACE department. And something that we did is we created a flow chart so that teachers know, because teachers are also anxious, right? So as an administrator, you want to provide the structures for your teachers
Yeah.
to know what to do, right? Because
Laura,
everyone needs to know what to do.
so much that you just talked about, the complexities, the layers, legal, mental health, physical health, financial. It's really an educational, of course, but it's, as educators, it's a lot more complex than we. And I applaud you and what Solorio is doing around partnering with so many to really prepare everyone, including the educators. Can you talk a little bit about the hoodie?
Sure.
The-
So we have some websites. I'm not sure if they were able to be shared in the chat, but so we sell hoodies that are becoming very popular in the city. We have seen them in some press conferences, pictures. We have different designs, but the most popular one is one that says, "I support undocumented students."
do you have one handy?
I don't have it right now, but
That's okay.
but Dr. Horwitz told me that she was going to share the
Okay.
link. If anyone wants to purchase or support, you can also make any kind of donations. But every single penny it goes either to the scholarship for undocumented seniors or to these funds to support the community.
Thank you very much. And maybe while Fanny's talking, you can go get one that you can show us.
Okay, sure, I will.
All right. So Fanny, thank you very much, Laura. Very impressive, all that you're doing. Fanny, thank you for coming back. What are the Chicago Public Schools official policies regarding immigration enforcement? And how are school leaders and district leaders keeping schools safe in?
You went off mute, I think, early, but I think I caught the question. So can you hear me? Okay, great. Okay. So, in Illinois, we have the Illinois Trust Act, and in Chicago, we have the Welcoming City Ordinance. And in accordance with both of those, right, both the state law and the city resolution ordinance, we have a resolution at CPS. And as CPS, we do not ask our families for their immigration status. We don't coordinate with federal immigration agencies, including ICE, including, CBP or any other immigration enforcement agency. We don't share student records with any of those agencies, except in the rare case that there would be a court-ordered or consent by a parent guardian. And we will not allow ICE agents or any other federal representatives inside of CPS facilities unless they produce a criminal judicial warrant signed by a judge, right? That has not happened. And so we are, very early on, we communicated this, and our Chicago Board of Education actually reaffirmed that commitment November 2024, right? So very early on, and we began the process of not just making people familiar with it, but also creating guidance and protocols consistent with our policy.
Thank you. And sorry for the glitch there with my mute button. What has your office of FACE or FACE, I like to say it in Spanish, been doing to help parents, community organizations, faculty, principals? And can you offer some specific examples like workshops or trainings or whole school organizing? and also describe the range of activities that your office is organizing.
Yeah, so FACE is doing a little bit of like a couple of a lot. One is that we work with the teams across our school district to develop guidance and training. So usually the guidance and training is mostly geared towards school leaders, security officers, and clerks. So we work hand in hand with the Office of Multilingual Multicultural Education that Laura was referencing, with our safety and security team, with really all of our, like most of our academic and operations team, because this is really, our entire school district. And we really take a look at like the type of guidance that we think is necessary at the ground level. And we also, Maria mentioned, for example, that she's very active in the PPC committee, right? One of the things that we really encourage is for the school leaders to activate their student committees that are set up to think through the very specific needs of the school building. We have a lot of school buildings, so just general guidance and protocols, like you still have to think through the ins and outs. Some of our school buildings have two campuses. Some of them sit on Park District land. Some of it, some of them have mobile units. And so we really, part of the guidance is that the activation of the local committees, that whether it's the whole school safety committee or the PPC or a sanctuary team, right? Like those are like the spaces where school leaders are really strategizing with their teams about things that they need to think about, not just for the safety of the building in the physical sense, but also those resources that Laura spoke about around behavioral health, maybe like different academic interventions for students that have been out. And so, we've been able to, as FACE, meet with the different teams and bring over the voice and the expertise that community-based organizations have in the area of immigration as well. In addition to that, our office has been partnering with agencies like Palenque Lasene, like BPNC, like the Resurrection Project, and countless others, like in LASA Chicago, to co-host Know Your Rights workshops. So not all of our schools are set up like Solorio, where they have a history of like putting together these workshops. They really have developed expertise around working with immigrant students, mixed status families. Some of our schools can reach out to FACE, and we can go out to the school with the partner, or we can set up something virtual, right? And just to give you an example, from January 2025 to April, just through FACE, like we co-hosted over 80 Know Your Rights workshops across the school district. That's not counting what was already happening with our other partnerships or at schools where they didn't need our support, right? And so that has continued on. We haven't stopped doing that, but the needs have morphed, right? So, we have partnered with agencies where they're doing more of the family preparedness workshops, where they are doing more of the temporary legal guardianship and, helping families think through finances or other logistics if they were to be impacted, right? To just be better prepared. And then most recently, we're also lifting up some workshops that we know the Resurrection Project is leading for individuals that may have work permits but are called in for an immigration check-in, right? And, there's fear around that. There's been some that have been detained at immigration court. And so we are regularly in conversations with our CBO partners and our city partners, really all of our partnerships across, including Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, so that we are supporting our district, and that really we are also reaching out to the schools that may need a little bit more support because either they have a brand new immigrant population, or because they are also just facing much more, they have more families that have been impacted than others. So those are examples of what we've done, but I also wanted to highlight that the impact of what's been happening is broader, right? Because we're also, as a school district, paying attention to the protections for LGBTQ plus students and staff, right? We're also paying attention to SNAP. We're also paying attention to, the different changes that are coming at the federal level or at the Department of Education level. And so, this is a part of a larger amount of challenges.
It's a bit of an octopus with 1,000 tentacles, reaching everybody and everything. We have a few more minutes left. I want 2 minutes exactly. Can you just very quickly talk about the school buses, walking school buses, and other efforts to support the to and from schools, and any tips for those looking to connect with similar projects?
Yeah, and before I answer that question, I forgot to mention we have a really amazing website at cps.edu/new admin guidance. And we also have a very strong communications team that does a tremendous amount of work to put out material on a regular basis for our families in multiple languages. So that these resources, whether they're happening at the local schools level or whether people want to access these resources virtually, that they're receiving that information. So I really want to encourage also those that are listening in to explore the website, cps.edu//new admin guidance. And your
We'll
question,
post it.
thank you. And then your question about, the walking school buses. This goes back to the example that Maria was bringing forth. Our community-based organizations have been amazing partners. They've always been amazing partners, but in this instance, they have really allowed for us to have a much more robust response. Our school district is facing a budget deficit, and I'm sure all of you have read about it, right? And we don't have all of the resources that we need to respond to something that are just not set up to respond to, right? Because we're an education institution and schools shouldn't have to be responding to things like this. And here we are. So our CBO partners like Palenque LSNA have been doing an immense amount of work around coordination of walking school buses or parent patrol. People have different names for it, right? And they're coordinating volunteers and parents, and with routes that when people feel unsafe, to support them in the walking to and from. And we know that this is probably a higher need in elementary schools. At the high school level, we hear that students, because they're more mobile on their own, right? Some of the fears are really, concentrated on, what are the resources available? Like, they themselves also probably want to do something about it because they want to have agency and they have thoughts and they have, an understanding of what's happening. And so it is our CBO partners and also even elected officials, for example, in the Northwest side, that have taken the lead in establishing a more structured approach to these walking school buses. And in some areas, we've seen very robust, comprehensive strategies. And in other areas, unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. And I also think it has to do with what Laura said too, right? Which is that some communities, everybody feels like a target. So there's not as much cover, right? And some communities have populations that may be working from home or have more flexibility in their jobs. And we know that areas like the Southwest side, with those efforts, like our community-based organizations are doing an amazing job, right? But maybe the walking school buses are not exactly replicable in the way that maybe the Northwest side is, or sections of the Northwest side, because I don't want to make assumptions that, all the Northwest side is able to do that. So our job really is, at the school district, is making sure that our school leaders and our schools are connected to community-based organizations in their areas, and that we are advocating also with our city partners and other agencies to be an extra layer of support. And so a good example of that is that at the height in the fall of the activity, our libraries and parks also, reached out to us and said, we can support also with being, just keeping an eye out at dismissal, right? And those are the type of creative solutions that we need. And we need, partnership more than anything from everyone, because we're a big school system and this impacts all of Chicago.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely one size does not fit all in a place like Chicago, and even the Chicago metro area. And definitely creative solutions is what we need, because this is quite unprecedented to the extreme that we're experiencing, and is far reaching. So with that, thank you, Fanny, and stay on the call. We were going to have 10 minutes, but we're a little bit behind. So we're now going to have about 7 minutes left. So I'll invite Laura and Maria to come back. And thank you. And so I wanted to ask each of you, if you could take about 2 minutes, the most important thing that you can convey to teachers, Maria for you in elementary school, Laura in high school, and then of course Fanny at the district level or more of organizational level that could also apply to other school districts across the country or across the state. So we'll start with Maria. About 2 minutes or so.
Okay, the first thing I would say is to know your families and what their needs and capacities are, because you are such a nexus in the community of being able to connect people and direct them to support or resources as needed. As far as yourself and your students, maintaining a mindfulness practice and a creative practice, I think, are essential right now. And that might feel really frivolous, but I think art and creativity, even if you're not going to show it to anybody, even if it's not that great, it just allows your students and yourself to express a lot of emotions that might be difficult to find the words for. And I'm looking to the examples of like the students and children in Gaza and Palestine and the students and children that are in detention centers right now. That is how they're able to cope and maintain some sense of communication and expression. And then the last thing I would say would be to tie it to your history. Don't be afraid to say like how this is connected to the history of our country, our community, to create context for students, no matter how young they are. They do have the capacity to build some understanding or to relate, and to find ways to take action. No matter how big or small, that is a way to build agency. And I think when we have agency, that's when we have some hope. So finding ways for students to build action, whether it's writing letters to their alderperson or inviting your alderperson into the classroom and discussing some of this stuff, or yourself going out and finding ways to engage in the community.
Thank you, Maria. Laura.
So I found the hoodie.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm gonna use part of my minute to promote our
I love it.
sales.
I love it. Thank you.
So I would say I definitely agree with Maria 100%. I will add that this is also a time to correct the false narratives, since the immigration conversation is on the table. And every opportunity I have with my Dream Team students, but also in class, I choose to share the data of all this information about how essential, how key we are as immigrants in the fabric of America, of how the tax paying myth, right? That's a big one. The surplus, the 30 trillion surplus of taxes that the immigrant community has paid in the last 30 years. This is a key moment to also make sure that the students hear that from us. They trust us. What we tell them really is important, but it's also to provide the tools for them to defend themselves and to reaffirm themselves, because for many years, for decades, we have heard so many negative things about immigrants. But I feel like this is a moment of reckoning that the whole society is going through, and I think that we need to take advantage of that in the classroom. Thank you.
A moment of reckoning it is. Fanny. Thank you, Laura. Fanny.
I don't know how to follow that.
I know.
I mean, what I would say is that, as a school district, that is majority Latino and has a large percentage of, you know, people impacted by in different ways by federal changes and federal implementation of policies. We are working in partnership with a lot of people, and we live in a city and a state that values immigrants, and you know, that you know, neighbors and teachers and principals and, you know, healthcare workers are doing a lot of work every day to support communities and try and prevent people from going back into the shadows and not living a full life. And you know, our team at central office and CPS, and you know, we are committed to supporting our students, and we know that our schools on the ground are, you know, committed. And so very lucky to be and fortunate to be here and continuing to learn from the moment and figure out what else can we be doing better. The last thing that I would say is, and it goes back to Maria's comment, is I've been reading this book to my little one for the last year, and it's about Alfredo Lopez, who fought for the education of undocumented students, you know, in Plyer versus Doe. And my little one is 5, and he sometimes comes up to me. He requested, like, you know, it's part of his book case, but he'll request it. And he's come to me several times saying, like, hey, Mom, and when you came to this country, were you able to go to school? And I'm able to tell him yes, because Alfredo fought for that right, you know, and we're fighting for that right every day, right? So I think, you know, utilizing what, like, our history and our strength and our assets, and in the best way we can in this moment, in small and big ways. That is, you know, something that I try to do every day.
Thank you, Fanny. And Plyler versus Lowe, to the participants, please look it up. It's a Supreme Court ruling that gives a free and public education to K-12 students in the country, regardless of immigration status or residency status. So that's the law of the land right now. We don't know how long it's going to last, but it is the law of the land. I have to say, sincerely and truthfully, your love for your students just and their communities just shines through tonight, and with your talk and the way you're talking, and with the devastation the devastation of the realities we're living in. You're still smiling because it comes through the Zoom here that you love your students and your community. So it's very moving and inspiring. And yes, it is a moment of reckoning. So a heartfelt thank you to you for all that you do, for being here after a long day. Fanny, Maria, Laura, thank you all for taking the time, and thank you everybody else for taking the time, and again to Diane and Maya. And I would like to close this really very informative, educational, and I think inspirational forum by quoting parts of the College of Education at DePaul, our statement in support of immigrant communities, which we approved, faculty and staff, last February. The College of Education at DePaul University stands firmly with our immigrant communities and reaffirms our unwavering commitment to protect and support those who are most vulnerable among us. We write as one voice, guided by the values of St. Vincent de Paul that uphold the dignity of all people. We commit to deepening our own understanding through continued faculty and staff education about immigration policy, cultural competency, and trauma-informed practices. We will continue to work toward positive systemic change through our research, our teaching, our community engagement, while actively collaborating with local organizations that protect and empower immigrant families. And with that, I want to thank you so much for all you do, for being here, for sharing your wisdom, and good night to everyone, and be safe. Thank you again. Gracias.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think we're off.
Are we off?